The snow-covered streets of my quaint little town glistened under the pale moonlight. Christmas decorations adorned every house, creating an aura of festivity and warmth. But beneath the surface of this idyllic winter wonderland, something sinister lurked, waiting for its chance to strike. I had just finished my shift at the local bakery and was making my way home through the deserted streets. The chill in the air bit at my exposed skin, causing me to quicken my pace. As I turned a corner, a flicker of movement caught my eye. My heart skipped a beat, and I glanced over my shoulder to find nothing but empty darkness. Nerves prickling, I continued walking, brushing off my paranoia as the product of an overactive imagination, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as an eerie silence enveloped the night. Just as I reached my doorstep, a gust of wind howled through the narrow alleyway beside me, sending a shiver down my spine. I fumbled with my keys, my hands trembling as I struggled to insert them into the lock. The eerie silence persisted, broken only by the distant jingle of Christmas carols echoing from a nearby house, reminding me of the joy and merriment that awaited inside. Finally, the door swung open, and I rushed inside, slamming it shut behind me. I leaned against it, trying to catch my breath and calm my racing heart. But as I stood there in the darkness of my entryway, a sinking feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't shake off the sense that someone had been following me, watching my every move. The faint sound of footsteps outside reached my ears, a soft, deliberate pacing that sent chills down my spine. Panic gripped me as I realized that whatever was out there had trailed me to my own doorstep. I tiptoed towards the living room window, peering through the curtains to catch a glimpse of my pursuer. My heart lurched in my chest when I saw a figure standing under the flickering street lamp. The stranger was tall and cloaked in darkness, their features obscured by a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over their face. The icy wind whipped at their coat, revealing glimpses of a gloved hand tightly clutching something. Fear consumed me as I realized the truth. This wasn't a mere coincidence. Someone was after me. My mind raced, searching for a plan, desperate to escape the clutches of this unknown predator. With trembling hands, I reached for my cell phone, ready to call for help. But just as my fingers brushed against the screen, the sound of shattering glass pierced through the silence. I turned to find the living room window shattered, shards of glass littering the floor like malicious teeth. Panic welled up within me as I darted towards the back door, hoping to flee into the safety of my neighbor's house. But as I grabbed the doorknob, it refused to budge. My heart sank as I realized that someone had locked it from the outside, trapping me inside my own nightmare. The stranger, now standing in the doorway, stared at me with cold, emotionless eyes. A twisted smile played across their lips, sending chills down my spine. They took a step forward, their gloved hand still clutching the something tightly. "Who are you? What do you want?" I stammered, my voice trembling with fear and desperation. They remained silent, their predatory gaze never wavering. With a sudden burst of courage, or perhaps sheer desperation, I lunged towards them, hoping to overpower my captor. But before I could even make contact, they swiftly sidestepped, causing me to stumble and crash into a nearby table. Pain shot through my body as shards of broken glass embedded in my palms. Blood dripped onto the floor, mingling with the shattered remains of my life. I groaned in agony, my vision momentarily blurred with tears. The stranger loomed over me, their presence suffocating and menacing. "You can't escape, my dear," they hissed, their voice dripping with sadistic pleasure. "I've been watching you for a long time. You're mine now." Fear surged through every fiber of my being, but a glimmer of determination ignited within me. I couldn't let this faceless monster destroy me. My survival instincts kicked in, urging me to find a way out of this terrible nightmare. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I scrambled to my feet despite the searing pain in my hands. I had to think, to find any possible means of escape. My eyes darted around the room for something, anything that could aid me in this desperate situation. A small fireplace rested against the far wall of the living room, its flickering flames casting eerie shadows across the room. In a last-ditch effort, I grabbed the metal poker from its stand and swung it at the stranger, hoping to catch them off guard. but they were quick to evade my attack, sidestepping effortlessly. The stranger's cold laughter echoed through the room, drowning out the sound of my pounding heart. "Oh, my dear, you think that flimsy tool can save you? You underestimate me." I knew that I couldn't fight them directly. They were stronger and faster, and my injured hands weakened my chances even further. But maybe, just maybe, I could use the environment to my advantage. In one swift motion, I hurled the poker toward the fireplace, aiming for the glass pane in front of it. The metal struck its target with a loud crack, shattering the glass and sending shards flying in all directions. The stranger lunged at me, taking advantage of my momentary distraction. The stranger grabbed a hold of me. With a surge of panic, I fought against their grip, desperately thrashing and kicking. But their strength was overpowering, and it seemed as if every attempt at escape only tightened their hold on me. The room spun around me as I struggled to breathe, my vision blurring at the edges. Just when all hope seemed lost, a sudden surge of adrenaline coursed through my veins, giving me a renewed burst of energy. With one final surge of strength, I managed to twist out of the stranger's grasp and break free. I stumbled backward, gasping for air as I scrambled towards the broken window. Ignoring the pain in my hands, I climbed through the shattered glass and into the biting cold night. The snow cushioned my fall as I tumbled onto the ground, but there was no time to waste. I had to find help. As I ran through the snow-covered streets, my heart hammered in my chest, urging me forward. Panic and fear propelled me forward, my desperation masking the pain in my hands and the exhaustion in my body. Every breath felt like fire in my lungs, but I couldn't stop. Not now. The town lay silent and still, as if holding its breath along with me. The only sound was the crunch of my footsteps against the snow, a haunting rhythm that echoed through the empty streets. I scanned the darkness for any signs of life, praying for a glimpse of a familiar face or an open door. Then, like a beacon of hope, I spotted a faint glow emanating from a small cafe nestled at the end of an alley. Relief flooded through me as I sprinted towards it, my frozen limbs protesting with every step. As I pushed open the cafe door, warm air embraced me, thawing my chilled skin. The place was nearly empty, save for a few patrons huddled over their cups of coffee, seeking refuge from the cold night. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, offering a brief respite from the chaos that had consumed my life. I stumbled towards the counter, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The cafe owner, a kind-faced woman with silver streaks in her hair, looked up from her work and immediately rushed over to me, concern etched on her face. "My dear, what happened to you?" she exclaimed, guiding me to a chair. "You're bleeding." I struggled to catch my breath as I explained in fragmented sentences about the stranger who had been relentlessly pursuing me. The cafe owner listened intently, her eyes filled with compassion and understanding. "We need to get you some medical attention," she said firmly, glancing around the cafe. "Does anyone here have a phone?" A young man at a nearby table stood up, his face etched with determination. "I have a cell phone," he offered, his voice steady despite the alarm in his eyes. "I can call for help." The cafe owner nodded gratefully as the young man dialed 911. While we waited for help to arrive, the cafe owner brought me a warm towel and gently tended to the cuts on my hands. Her touch was soothing, and for a brief moment, I felt safe. As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the cafe began to ease. The other patrons offered words of encouragement and support, assuring me that help was on its way. Their kindness overwhelmed me, reminding me that even in the darkest of times, there were still people willing to lend a hand. Finally, the sound of sirens pierced through the night. Relief washed over me as I watched the paramedics rush into the cafe. They quickly assessed my injuries and assured me that I would be taken care of. As they loaded me into the ambulance, I stole one last glance at the cafe owner and the other patrons who had come to my aid. Gratitude swelled within me, knowing that their compassion had saved me from a fate that could have been much worse. The ambulance sped through the snowy streets, its lights flashing in time with the urgency in my heart. I could feel the weight of the night's events finally catching up to me, exhaustion seeping into my bones as I lay on the stretcher. The hospital was a blur of sterile walls and hushed voices. Nurses and doctors moved with precision, their eyes filled with both sympathy and determination. They patched up my wounds, giving me pain medication to ease my physical discomfort. But it was the emotional wounds that still lingered, gnawing at my spirit, that no medication could heal. Days turned into weeks as I recovered in the hospital, each passing moment a reminder of the ordeal that had brought me there. The stranger haunted my every thought, leaving me in a constant state of fear and paranoia. The police were investigating, but there were no leads yet. I felt trapped, like a mouse in a labyrinth where every turn led to dead ends. One afternoon, as I gazed out of the hospital window, a flash of movement caught my eye. Startled, I leaned closer, my heart pounding in my chest. It couldn't be, but there, in the distance, stood a figure that sent shivers down my spine. The stranger. My breath caught in my throat as memories flooded back. His dark eyes, piercing through my soul. His relentless pursuit, like a predator stalking its prey. How did he always manage to find me? Fear twisted within me, intertwining with the pain and exhaustion that had consumed my days. But as I stared at the figure from afar, something shifted within me. No longer did I see him as an omnipresent threat. Instead, I saw him as a reminder of the strength that lay dormant within me. He had been a catalyst for change, awakening a resilience I never knew I possessed. Days turned into weeks, and despite the constant ache in my heart, I began to rebuild my life. With every step forward, the stranger seemed to fade further into the background, his presence becoming nothing more than a distant memory. The hospital became a place of healing, not just for my physical wounds, but for my shattered spirit as well. The nurses and doctors became my support system, guiding me through the difficult process of recovery. They offered kind words of encouragement and provided therapy sessions to help me confront the trauma I had endured. Together, we unraveled the tangled web of fear and began to piece together the fragments of my shattered life. One afternoon, as I sat in the hospital's rehabilitation center, working on strengthening my body, a nurse approached me with a gentle smile. "There's someone here to see you," she said softly. My heart skipped a beat as I wondered who it could possibly be. Family, friends, or perhaps the stranger himself. Fear threatened to overwhelm me once again, but I squared my shoulders and followed the nurse down the hallway. The room was dimly lit, with soft music playing in the background, creating an atmosphere of tranquility. And there, sitting in the corner, was a figure I thought I would never see again. The stranger. My breath hitched in my throat as I took a hesitant step forward. His presence sent chills down my spine, but curiosity overpowered my fear. I needed closure, answers to the questions that had plagued me for weeks. As I approached him, he slowly lifted his head, revealing his face for the first time without the shadows obscuring his features. His eyes bore into mine with an intensity that made my heart race. But instead of the malicious glare I had grown accustomed to, there was something else there. Regret. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice laden with remorse. "I never wanted to hurt you." Confusion washed over me, mingling with the fear that still lingered within. How could he expect me to believe his words? The weeks of torment and terror were etched deep within my soul, scars that would never fully heal. "You expect me to believe that?" I mustered the courage to speak, my voice quivering with a mix of anger and desperation. "You hunted me down, invaded my life, and left me broken. You think a few words can erase all that?" The stranger's eyes flickered with a hint of sadness as he met my gaze. "No, I don't expect you to forgive me, nor do I deserve it. But I need you to understand that there was more to it than you know. More than what meets the eye." I clenched my fists, the frustration boiling inside me, but a part of me couldn't help but be intrigued by his words. Despite the fear gripping me, there was a burning curiosity to unravel the mystery that surrounded this man. "Tell me," I demanded, my voice laced with urgency. "Tell me everything." The stranger sighed, his shoulders slumping as if carrying the weight of 1,000 secrets. "It started long ago," he began, his voice barely audibly above the soft music in the room. "I was once like you, broken and lost in a world that seemed devoid of hope. But then I met her, the woman who changed everything." He paused, his eyes wandering to a distant memory. She had an aura about her, a light that shone so brightly it could pierce through the darkest of nights. I was drawn to her like a moth to flame, unable to resist her magnetic pull, and so I pursued her, seeking solace in her presence. "But she didn't want me," he continued with a sadness that echoed through his words. "She rejected me, over and over again. And in my desperation, I convinced myself that if I couldn't have her love willingly, then I would take it by force." My heart sank as the stranger's confession unfolded before me. It was a tale of twisted obsession, born from a broken heart and a shattered sense of self. The pieces began to come together, revealing a man who had lost his way in the darkness, unable to grasp the concept of love without possession. As he spoke, I could see the agony etched on his face, the torment and regret that consumed him. It was as if his actions had sealed his own fate, leaving him trapped in an endless cycle of guilt and remorse. Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to his story unfold. Despite the pain he had inflicted upon me, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for this broken soul. We were both victims of circumstances beyond our control. Him, a prisoner of his own demons, and me, a survivor trying to piece my life back together. "Why are you telling me this?" I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The stranger looked at me with a mix of sadness and determination. "Because I need you to know that I understand the pain I've caused. I need you to know that I am truly sorry for the darkness I brought into your life. And most importantly, I need you to know that it ends here." And just as soon as he entered my life, the stranger disappeared from the room, and I never saw him again.